Hi there, welcome to Polkadot Wyckoff Technical Analysis session. So Polkadot has been sailing towards the same direction for a couple of weeks already, so that's a good sign. So even if there are up and down in between, basically the course hasn't changed. So let's quickly take a look at both the weekly and daily charts and see where Polkadot is heading. So this is the weekly chart, and after last week's drop, obviously the week before there was a high attempt but then got rejected. That's no problem. The reason is, if we look at this yellow dashed line, that's basically an upward trend support, and over the past 2 weeks, if we look at the wicks, they were both rebounding from the point when the lines got hit. So if I adjust the line a little just to make it tighter, we are seeing the first week of October, well actually the second week, the first week is the first. So the first week of December breakout point, because I mentioned many times that the price breakout doesn't wait till the very tip, which is December 8th. So December 1st, the week of December 1st, is the last occasion where we see this kind of within this ascending triangle between the red key level of $4.3 and this uptrend support line. So that's why I said it's still sailing along this wedge, and it's just a matter of time for it to break out. And after these many weeks of testing since mid-June, it seems like it's pretty healthy in the sense that it always finds support along the way and never fell below this support trend line. So I would say that's a sign of confidence over there. This is potentially what we're going through, so I'm going to keep the 60%. The test, while this is showing a healthy trend, I'll say we still have to be cautious if the big guys really try to make another test to check out whoever that got in. You see all these supports, all these long wicks at the bottom, right? If the big guys try to check out whoever got in early, they may take another round of tests, much like what happened back in November, actually late October. You see this last week of October back in 2024, before this November crazy candle upwards. So just to give you a reference what had happened, even though there were some sideways trading or even uptrend trading, if the big guys want to, they can check people out before they actually launch the rocket. And in terms of the Bollinger Band counter squeeze, technically we're still within the squeeze, and when the price edges towards this narrower triangle tip, the squeeze force will just become bigger and bigger. When the squeeze force release, that's when we are going to see a big price wing. Hopefully not towards the downside, because we're near the end of the Wyckoff accumulation cycle, so hopefully it's going to head towards the new buying climax. So that's the big picture. And let's see the daily chart and try to find out what's going on there. So previously I've drawn these tags. If this was the selling climax, and this was the automatic rally last Sunday, what we're going through now, we don't really have a term for it. So that's why I had another scenario drawn right over here, this yellow tags. If that was actually an accumulation and we are in another distribution. So here, what we're seeing, obviously I've got this here as well. So the tricky part of this is, if this was the yellow scenario, what we are going through at this point may just be a sign of weakness instead of a selling climax. And what we're having right now here is another test that's pretty close to the buying climax. It may well be, because it hasn't finished yet, it can be what I call a PSY3. I just put a question mark here because it hasn't fully evolved yet. What that means is there may be an upthrust of the distribution coming. If it edges towards this and then eventually shoots up, that's when that will happen. But let's keep the yellow for now and just focus back to the red. So if, let's say, this is really PSY2, so we've got the first PSY over here, that's for the buying climax. PSY2 correspond to the upthrust, so I just put a UT over here, and automatic reaction for the upthrust, I'll call it an AR2. And what that's over there is essentially an upthrust of the distribution. And this point here for the red isn't actually this. It should be a sign of weakness. That's somewhere around the level that we had back in beginning of September, late August, as well as mid-August. And this is basically not an automatic rally. So if this is just an intermediate tag, because this hasn't been fully defined yet, if the price really comes back down, then this would be confirmed as an LPSY. So far, where we are at, it's still too early to declare this as a certain thing, because we haven't seen the full form yet. So if it comes down and then keeps on bouncing, that's where it's having all these LPSYs, and maybe that's when we've got an accumulation happening at this level as well. So it's really tricky to tag these Wyckoff tags in the daily time frame, because if we compare that to the weekly we're waiting for a sharp leg upwards, and in daily it's like it's at the end of an accumulation cycle. So it's really a test now. This is also a new experience to me. When that happens, how do we treat the stages in a daily time frame? When the community asked me to do Wyckoff in a more frequent time frame, that's the consideration I have. Like when these kind of scenario happens, it's a totally new experience even for me, how to adjust and adopt to the daily chart on what's happening, because it can be just a very long leg up without any sort of adjustment or accumulation, or it can be some form of accumulation at a very high level. So if we look at the chart back in here, when the price shoots up, there's not much pulses, and that's where the tricky part is. So if we have already defined a certain buying climax or even upthrust, and then eventually LPSY, and this over here, this may be, or like we have to treat this as an accumulation cycle in the daily chart, even though in the weekly that may not be the case. So if we look at December 2023, and then January 2024, and eventually March 2024 in the weekly chart. So December 2023 was basically the spring, post-spring period, and it's actually here that we've got the blind climax January, December time, and eventually March was the up thrust. But then if we look at the daily chart, October 23, that's when we had the spring, right? And then this December was the buying climax. So if we take this as the buying climax, it would be wrong. So in the daily chart, this is only the PSY period, and that was actually the buying climax over here, and that's an up thrust. But in the daily chart, I mean, those are the weekly, but in the daily chart, you see, oh, this seems to be the buying climax that still matches the weekly, but then it has come down, and this looks like a selling climax, and then automatic rally, and a sign of strength, and then eventually it shoots up. And this is actually the new buying climax for the daily, so it's not at this as the same stage as the weekly. So that's the tricky thing I was trying to point out, because this period during January 2024 was an accumulation for the daily chart, but then in the weekly, January 2024, that was only the automatic reaction period, like this little accumulation over here. In the weekly chart, we don't call that an accumulation cycle at all. So when the time comes, when we get to the current distribution cycle, that's the real test on how we're going to name those Wyckoff stages. But let's see, we still have time. It's not something to be worried about for the time being. We can explore together when that happens. So finger crossed, we're not too far from the end of November time frame, and the breakout can happen even earlier than that. So thanks for joining me. See you in the next